Good morning and welcome to Who Am I? My own personal project that I'm sort of sharing with the world. At some point, other people might be listening to this. I don't know. I don't have many fans at the moment, but whoever you are, I do appreciate you. I'm noticing that a lot of times I don't have a view, but somebody's gone in and given me a thumbs up anyway, and I really, really appreciate that. It seems like a small thing, but no, that makes me feel very good. I don't do this project so much for an outside audience, although without any audience at all, it doesn't. I mean, I need the audience, but I don't do it for the audience. And I don't care at the moment how big the audience is, as long as my expansion in this subject continues. That's what I keep doing this show for. I don't actually have I say I have an agenda. I do and I don't. Because you can to a point, but you've got to let the universe pick it up at some point and do it the way the universe wants to do it. You can't fixate on it having to unfold in a particular way. What you fixate on is the spirit that you want it to unfold in. Fixate on the spirit and then calmly choose from choices within, but release your attachment to whether it's exactly that way or not. It's like the rules to the game are tricky, but consistent. And once you learn them, you can play with this big thing we've got. This almighty oneness that is between us. You can start playing with it. This universe of Play-Doh, of Plonks, of... So, what is the show? The show is Who Am I? I was going to post a couple of days ago, but honestly, it's tragic. I wanted to say this to my husband. I wanted to tell anybody what had happened. I recorded, well, I didn't record. I was in the middle of the most amazing show. It was Sunday morning. And I was about half hour into it when I looked down at the recording timer thing. And I saw that it was paused. And it had gotten paused at 2.5 minutes in. And so all this amazing work that I did, I was just so loosey-goosey. And I said my material. It was so perfect. Didn't record any of it. And when I went back and listened to it, just somehow randomly in the middle of something, it just paused right in the middle of a sentence. So it wasn't like I had paused officially for a second and then didn't come back. Somehow I clicked the mouse right over the... I don't know how it happened. Anyway, I threw the 2.5 minutes away and did not post a show. How I handled it, instead of feeling really bad, oh my gosh, I've lost this amazing footage and I'm just so sad. I actually made it a point right at that moment to have a prayer of gratitude, to say a prayer of thanks for how grateful I was that I was getting to the point where I could produce such a show. And I was eager and excited for the future when finally I would actually record a really, really good show. And I was getting closer and closer to it. And then I walked away from it not feeling too bad. And I thought, well, tomorrow's another day. Well, yesterday we played golf. And so today I'm back in the studio. And I'm so glad to be here. I hate it when I take the day off. My life doesn't, it goes fine, but it just doesn't feel as nice. I love to do this show. I'm getting to the point where I really love to do this show anyway. I don't always love getting up at 4:30 in the morning. This morning was hard because I didn't sleep very well. For many hours I tossed and turned in the middle of the night. I didn't sleep very well. And then, of course, as soon as I got back to sleep, it was 4:30 and time to wake up. But all of this is neither here nor there. The question of the day is, who am I? Who am I? It's always the question. And it's not just a simple who am I? And then when you start thinking about that question, you realize how many reference frames you're talking about and how many different ways you could come at that. How many different ways you can answer that question. How many different ways you can ask that question. Who am I? And the reference in our particular case is source energy. We want to know who am I in reference to source energy. What is this source energy thing and how am I that? And the understanding of what that is, what understanding does that bring to me about who I am and how to operate my equipment in this? How does the divine matrix work? Or how does this matrix work? However you want to say it. Now, I claim I have an agenda because I am not channeling any creature from another universe. I am very human, and I am concerned about our situation. While on the one hand, I'm not concerned about our situation. Do you understand? You can be both. And as a matter of fact, when you're standing in the paradoxical position, apparently that's the center. That's where you really are seeing the situation. When you're standing in the paradoxical center. Yes, I'm concerned about our situation, but I'm not at all concerned about our situation because I know that we are in the hands of all of us are in the hands of our own inner beings who absolutely know that we want this, that we want to be sustainable, that we want to make it to the 22nd century, that we want to be kind unto the planet, that we don't want to kill everything unconsciously because we like to eat hamburgers, you know, or whatever the problem is. I'm tired of hearing about it. Anytime you hear anybody seriously giving the update on the situation, always says that it's still there. The problem is still there. Although I would point out that many technologies have been created to help us along with our plight. My particular position, I maintain, and I don't know how to get really strong in this belief, in this knowing, in this position without because I don't want to fight with the outside world. I only want to get really clear about the things that I do believe, the things that I do desire, and what it is that I want to keep my eye on. You know, what ball do I want to keep my eye on? That's all I'm concerned about. And then I figure the rest is going to kind of take care of itself. Because as I get clearer and clearer on what it is that I know, what I believe, what I feel, who I am, what I want, all of that, then I can very clearly, without the push and pull of contradictory energy, I can just gently, gently, gently move in the direction of what I clearly, clearly want. Even if it's a castle, not a button, you know? Abraham claims that it is so. That all you have to worry about is your own mixed energy, your own crossed energy. And if you can clear out any of that and just move from your position, from who you are and how you are, just move from your position on the grid in a gentle, non-contradicted forward direction. If you do that, if you avoid the resistance, you just find your own non-resistant path, that the waters will part for you. Nothing will come in your way. If you find your own absolute path of least resistance, you can just simply move towards what you want. Well, what do I want? There's a lot of things that I want. I want abundance for planet Earth. And there really is no reason for us to not have abundance, except for the fact that human beings don't understand who they are, and they are in the midst at the moment of creating a lack that is not necessary. There's reasons, I believe there are reasons why we are creating this lack. First of all, we don't understand who we are. And the more that we create this lack, the more we force ourselves into a position of comprehend or die. You know, it's a caterpillar moment, people. We are in a caterpillar moment. And just as the bush, all the leaves on the bush disappear, we up-level and turn into the butterfly that we really are. Quit looking at all the horrible things that we've done from the vantage point of that aspect of us is immutable. That's one of the laws of the universe. Human beings suck. That isn't one of the laws of the universe. So I'm going to try to recreate how great I did the other day. It's already not going to happen because I've spent like the first 10 minutes of the show just describing why I didn't do a show day before yesterday, which, you know, that's not really a good start. But this whole show is it's stream of consciousness. It's me just, you know, riffing and getting good at putting my subject together. My subject is source energy, but in a general view. Now, I promised on that show I did not publish day before yesterday that today I was going to do a show. I want to do it. I want to do a show that is more intensely me describing the shape of the physical universe in the light of the new mathematics, the new mathematical understanding of Planck oscillations, how the spinning space-time, the black hole structure. There was something about it that what did I promise? Doesn't matter. I never published that show, did I? So I should just do exactly what I was doing then, which was just relax and just let's start talking about the really cool stuff. The reason that we're going to be okay is that the setup that we are embedded in, that we are a part of, is so malleable, so supported, so supportive, so beneficent, so benevolent, so connected, and so kind, and so capable, that we're going to be able, once we face the reality of reality, we're going to be able to fix every one of our problems is going to be easily fixed. And I have a sort of a general idea of the pathway out of this. The problem that faces us is that we are centralized. Now, everything, you could look at it as both good news and bad news, good news and bad news, good news and bad news, and I will try to do that as I come forward with this explanation of what our actual issue is and what is going to make it better. Well, first of all, our understanding of the issue is going to make it a lot better. But our tendency to centralize, I don't know if we have a tendency to centralize. The reason we're doing it has to do with our energy source. And the paradigm of scarcity that we've got going on right now is an expression of our energy source. All of our problems are emerging from our energy source. The way that we have the way that we are powering our civilization is the problem. And the centralized energy situation leads to centralized power. Now, it's both a good thing and a bad thing. I mean, it's all good and bad, and it all depends on what you do with it as to whether you turn that into a good or whether you turn it into a bad. The good part, well, I don't know how to. The bad part of our energy system is that right at the moment it's creating a paradigm of scarcity. Scarcity because we have more people and more work to do, more dreams and ambitions and building projects and needs and desires going on than we have energy to do the work. And yet at the same time, we have many people who are not really satisfyingly employed. Some of them may be barely adequately employed down at the local muffler shop or the local McDonald's or at the local Kohl's or, well, you know, somewhere in the paradigm of the economic structure that we have going in this very red hot minute. They may have some sort of a job in the structure of the momentum that we have built. But that doesn't mean anything because it's the structure, it's a rolling manifestation. It is not, it's moving. These are not structures, the big box stores and the fast food and the energy sector and the military industrial complex jobs. All of these things that you see in this moment are not permanent job structures. They aren't. And the ones in the healthcare, none of them are permanent structures. And so we will be gently or lurchingly moving towards different forms. And whether it is gently or whether it is lurchingly is going to be up to us in how we handle our understanding of who we are and what we've got going on the ground right now and what we need to do to come together to fix this. Well, first of all, you need to be autonomously individual and divinely so and sacredly so and take it very seriously. You are your own individual self before you are anything else. And at the same time, overarchingly, inescapably, you are not only your autonomous individual self, you are one with the allness around you. That one is even a priori. So what do I want to talk about today? Why was I talking about the energy source? Well, I believe that we need to get onto a different energy source. And with this armed with the new energy source, mankind will literally be energized. And we will put ourselves to work quickly, repairing the damage to Mother Gaia, to Mother Eden, whoever you want to call her. We can repair her, and we can co-create a new era of absolute, breathtaking, and fun abundance with the structure of this planet that we have been graced with, and our better understanding of who we are and how this whole setup works. And there's number of angles to it. First of all, we are possessed of a vehicle that we are all driving. We call it a human being. The human being vehicle, I call it an HBV. And this HBV, it consists of two main component parts. Part of it is sort of the electrical system, you might say, and the other part is the mechanical system. The mechanical system you could think of as your conventional physical body. That's the mechanical system. And then the electrical system is this vibrational aspect that's plugged into the entire universe. We call it the inner being. I like this nomenclature. I get that from Abraham. The inner being. That's the way to refer to it. Many people know exactly what this force is that I'm talking about. They may call it something else. They may call it something like the Holy Spirit or the Holy Ghost. And some people call this force, they call it other things, but whatever you want to call it, your chi, or whatever you want to call it, it's your source self. It is the aspect of you that is connected to all things, to the almighty oneness of the universe, this holographic universe that we abide in. We do live in a holographic universe, and we are holographic beings within this blessed holographic universe. And our HBV consists of these two aspects. I think of them also as form and formless. That's another way of demarking the two aspects that comprise the you that you think of as you. Now, the physical aspect of you is expirational and temporally placed on the grid in the rolling on the movie, on the grid. I like to call it a grid. It is a grid, and when you start thinking about it that way, then you recognize that your physical body belongs in a particular position in this space and time on the grid. But your spirit, the aspect of you that is connected to all things, is not physical. It's vibrational and eternal. It is you as your continuum, the continuum that is you, the continuum of desire, the continuum of thought and awareness, consciousness. That continuum of you is vibrational, connected to all things, and nothing can hurt it. That is part of who you are, and the other part of you is your physical body, which of course everybody is familiar with the physical body aspect. But yes and no. Yes and no. Familiar with, but do you know who you really are? Probably not. I ask this question for 2 hours every day. and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and think about it and think about it. And I've pulled my own systems apart and considered all the beliefs in there, replaced them. Also, they are quite malleable. Your beliefs, you don't realize how movable your beliefs really are. Because you in your HBV, you're an operating system. You're a computer. You're a computer operating system that is analyzing the whole freaking universe. And because you own a human being model, that's the model of biotech that you are driving this era, or likely you are if you're listening to this YouTube channel. You are yourself driving one of these HBVs. Because of that, you're really, really special concerning what you can do, what you're capable of doing with this machinery that you've got, which in a way is infallible, but in another way is extremely fallible. And you got to watch how you line those up and where you recognize where your power and your wisdom and your truth are, and where it is hubris and a self-delusion, where it becomes Wetiko, and where it is your deep inner connected knowing. Because you got the capability, you've got both possibilities. What is this Wetiko thing I'm talking about? Well, I believe that Wetiko is created. You become, you succumb to the Wetiko mind virus the moment that you do this thing that I talk about. It's so banal that we recognize that people do it all the time. They do it all the time. The problem is when you get a momentum going, when your focus locks that direction, when you don't recognize the problem and you start believing your negative self, all of these things, then this banal thing that we are designed to do becomes a real problem unto this earth. This idea of who is the negative mind? Who is our negative self? Because I don't believe it's really us. Yet, on the other hand, you're the one who created it. It's your mess. You're responsible for the cleanup, and yet it isn't you. How do I reconcile this thought that I got going? Because I believe, like A Course in Miracles tells us, only the love is real. Only the love is real. As you look out onto the world and you're trying to figure out what's real and what matters and how the universe works and all that, you have to take into consideration the structure of the matrix, and then who you are within it. You gotta. So who am I? Who am I? I am this being driving an HBV. An HBV being this combination unit of inner being and conventional physical structure. I mean, I can see it as my conventional physical structure, and I can look at the cosmos in a conventionally physical way, and I can do some of the mathematics in a conventional physical way. But to really understand what's going on and what it means to be holographic, what it means to be driving an HBV in a holographic universe, in the 21st century, in a moment in time when, wow, we are on a precipice. We are standing on a precipice. If we keep driving our civilization in the manner that we have been, we're gonna go extinct. I know it doesn't sound like that would even be possible because there's 8 billion. The problem right now is overpopulation. How can overpopulation jive with extinction? You know, that just doesn't even seem right. How can we go extinct? There's so many of us, you know, and everything's so good. Well, if you're lucky enough to be standing in a place of humanity where everything is really good for you, and I'm happy for you, and I'm proud of you, and all of that. You must be doing fine. But the fact is that we are all one. We're one, and so it's sort of like we're one body. And so if my legs are doing really well, but my arms are suffering from gangrene, it doesn't do very well for me to be focusing on my feet and saying, oh, but my feet are doing so well, when other parts of my body are not doing so well. And there are other parts of the human body that are not doing so well. I believe there are, although, now, I don't want to focus that way, because the actual truth of the matter is there are more human souls on the planet right at this moment playing than there have ever been in all of time. There are likely billions of people, because what is that? What are we, pushing 8? I don't know how, 7 point something billion. I don't know how many billion we are, but there's a lot of us. And there's probably at least a couple of billion of those who are playing in some way. I mean, everybody has to work because everybody has to somehow support this superorganism that we are. Everyone has to contribute something, somehow, some way. Now, in actual truth, when we get to the sustainable position that we're heading for, when we get to that position, every single one of us is going to be doing what we ourselves have chosen to do, given our understanding of the situation, given our understanding of the choices that we have, given our understanding of our own personal equipment and our connection to each other and the rest of the field, what needs to be done, who we are individually. So I know what I like, I know who I am, I know what the situation is around me, and I have chosen what I want to do because it jives with who I am. What I want to do in order to help the whole situation get down the road. You know, how to help us all be more joyfully and playfully and efficiently who we are. Right? So every one of us can choose that. Now, right now, you may feel like you didn't really choose this. God damn it, I didn't want to do this, but I had to do something, and, you know, everybody has to make money, and so, you know, this is what I've decided to do. And the real lazy ones are just going to go out and, I was going to say go out and, you know, kill the elephants for their tusks, but I'm pretty sure that that's not lazy work. I don't want people to do that in order to capitalize. I want humanity to find their abundance, and I want them to find their energy source, because a whole lot of wonderful, 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 wonderful things are going to happen when we get ourselves out of the pickle that we have put ourselves into. Now, I know I sound presumptuous, because who am I? I'm nobody over here. I'm just a concerned citizen. I am a concerned citizen who's been looking at this situation for my entire life. Spoiler alert, I was born in 1960, 2 years before Rachel Carson wrote her book, Silent Spring, which, by the way, was in the house when I became aware of my own consciousness. There that book was, and by the time I was able to read, there it was, and I read it. And I started realizing that human beings suffered from a kind of, I've already used this word before today, and I don't like to use an odd word twice in the same 2-hour show. But I recognized already, even at a very young age, that humanity suffered from a kind of hubris. A sort of arrogance that I wasn't sure was warranted. My father fought in the Second World War, and I considered the Second World War to be an epic shit show. That I was not convinced that humanity had completely learned its lesson about, as the military-industrial complex only got bigger from the end of that war on. What Rachel Carson was telling us about how we were poisoning our ecosystem, that whenever human beings decided, oh, the mosquitoes are a little thick this year, and one person or 2 people in the city died of West Nile virus. Therefore, we need to fill the trucks with poison and go out into the fields and slather poison on everything in order to kill the mosquitoes. I recognize that was like stupid kind of thinking. And there are still plenty of people who suffer from this non-complex, non-connected, non-wise, head not screwed into the heart kind of thinking. And we need to get over it, because it is not good for the planet. I personally believe that there is zero reason why human beings should ever solve our problems by bombing our neighbors. That we don't need to do that. And as a matter of fact, we've let it get too far. We have not gotten out ahead of it if we get to the point where we are dropping bombs on our neighbors. We have devolved into autoimmune disorder when we do that. And it's all very understandable why. I mean, we just need to understand who we are, who we really are, so we will quit being our reactive, unconscious, default selves, and instead become this new kind of being that we can be. We absolutely can be. We absolutely are. We absolutely are becoming this. Our understanding of who we are is growing. The very fact that a nobody such as myself is on a podcast, or it's not really a podcast, it's just a YouTube thing. I do it for myself. I record it because it gives it meaning to me. If I don't record it, if I just sit in a room and talk to myself and assure myself that the field is listening, and that somehow I'm having an effect on things because I'm changing, I still feel like there's a physical barrier, that like I haven't done something. You have to do it in the field of action, or it doesn't count in the field of action, because that's the language that physical reality speaks. It speaks the language of physicality. And so as long as I just sit in my room and I'm not really making any, it's mostly just me talking to myself. But then it was just better. It's just better that I record it, because now I have also recorded me very slowly lining it all out. This is how what I'm saying lines up. This is what I mean over here. These are my definitions over here. This is my agenda points. This is my thesis statement. This is my evidence. Here's my, I'm referencing the different material from other people, the mathematics from Nassim Haramein, and the video that explains it, and then there's a couple of movies, and then there's a Gaia series, 12-part Gaia series. So most of that's Nassim Haramein that I'm trying to show you. Hey, this is the new understanding of the shape of the universe. This is how all of the things that our forefathers of physics, how the pieces that they understood and the places that they kind of left dangling because they didn't understand fully how it all fit into a seamless oneness. Well, the seamless oneness has been figured and the mathematics has been done. All of this means the roadmap for the technology are in place. The technologies of the future are in place. I just did exactly what I accidentally did 2 days ago. I only did it for a second and I saw it. As I clicked on the mouse to make it go to life so that I could move it to another thing, the mouse was already hovering over the pause button. And I paused it accidentally. That's what I did. That's how I killed my show the other day. And I could have killed it just now. 40 minutes into the show, I could have just left everything hanging. And then I'd be like, how did that happen? So anyway, you have to act in the field of action, because that's the language that counts in the language of reality. So that's why I do it this way. I come into this and I lay everything out. And someday somebody's going to be able to comb through this and go, "Oh my God, look at what she was looking at. She's got it all lined up." You can see, what the negative self means. And it's neither good nor bad, it just is what it is. It's an energy, and that's the way that works. And this Wetiko thing, and crossing your own energy stream, and what demonic energy is. Shiva energy, demonic energy, Loki energy, chaotic energy. It's the energy of the shadow self, which is born the very second that you go negative. And the reason that that's true is because who you really are, moving through time and through always, who you really are is this positive self. This always, always positive self is who you really are. And when you are being anything other than that, there is an energy event that happens, and it's meant to be that way because it's pointing you to an understanding of who you are. Oh, when I act in a way that opposes this positive being that I am, I can feel this sensation of it in my solar plexus. It kind of has a sort of, I don't know, there's an energy about it. Hold on 1 second. Anyway, for whatever reason I do it, and this is why I do it, because I want to see some physical results in my lifetime. There have been times when I have tried to abandon this project. And every time I do, and then I'm just left watching the world, seeing current events and news and wars that don't go away and military-industrial complexes that just keep getting bigger, and idiocracy unfolding around me. And I'm thinking, God, I can see this pattern. I have to speak up. We are so glorious. It's incredible. But when we don't know who we are so destructive and horrible. I hate people. But I love people. People are so wonderful. And you know what? We are a mixed bag. But the reason we're a mixed bag, we're only a mixed bag when you're talking about human beings that don't understand who they are. And so they start, if you don't understand your equipment, then you behave inappropriately when your negative self arises. And everyone has a negative self. Everyone has a negative self. It's so breathtakingly easy to give rise to the negative self. All you have to do is summon a low frequency thought, and that your negative self will come forth right away. You know, start thinking about in specific detail anything that rubs you the wrong way, whether it's unkindness to children or small animals, you know, or whether it's whatever your thing is. Pedophiles. I know somebody whose thing is pedophiles. They're just, because they have a child and they're just absolutely terrified that someone is going to victimize them. Although they're working on it, so I don't really want to point any fingers. But everybody's got their own bugaboos. I have mine, the ones that really set me on edge. It has to do with eco-destruction. I am deeply affected by, I don't know if you've ever seen the video footage of an orangutan trying to fight with a jungle destroyer. It's a big machine that cuts trees, and it's trying to clear a section of the jungle where this orangutan lives, and he's trying to fight this machine. This kind of thing just absolutely lays me low. There's other things. Drowning polar bears. If you know me, you've heard my litany of woe. The things that affect me. The things that make me feel like we aren't going to make it to the 22nd century. And somebody might say, well, why do you care? You're old enough. You'll probably be gone in 20, 30 years. So what does it matter to you? We'll probably make it that long. But you know what? If we don't make a change in our systems now, some of us may still be here 20 years from now, but we aren't going to be in a state of fun, happy abundance. We're going to be in a state of increasing competition and lack and suffering, and increasingly less biodiversity on the planet, more and more just human beings and what gasping plants that we, are holding on to because we eat them. So it's just going to be human crops and human livestock and too many human beings on a planet that's less and less beautiful. I heard this I did not explore this thought, but I heard that people are concerned that the Great Barrier Reef is in the process of disintegrating. There's all kinds of eco-disaster things going on that, while on the one hand I don't really want to look that direction because they're really beautiful, beautiful aspects of the world that you could still turn and focus on. And if looking at the darkness makes you unplugs you from source, it is best that you do focus on the good stuff. But these problems, I could say they won't go away by themselves, but in a way they could go away by themselves if we didn't put up the resistance that makes it way slower going. If we understood who we were and leaned into our positive self, understood what to do when someone goes negative. When someone goes negative, the answer is not make war on them and throw them in prison and get your revenge on them for whatever, deed for whatever antisocial deed they committed. That's not how we're going to get to a better place. That's sort of on the order of, and the beatings will continue until morale improves kind of a paradigm, which that's amusing because you know that that's never going to happen. You can beat them forever and morale will never improve that way. Well, I see a lot of things that human beings do that, you know what, we're doing it to fix that problem, but that's never going to fix that problem. And as a matter of fact, it's making that problem bigger. And then you say, but what do? You have to do something. You have to have laws. You have to have consequences to people, you know, who break the laws. Yes, I suppose I understand what you're saying. There is an alternative. You could teach people who they are and who we all are and how our equipment works. And you could get people to voluntarily cooperate with systems that make sense, that cover everybody, that sustain us all, that don't leave anybody falling through the cracks and then wanting to play 9 pins on all the rest of our heads, you know, in revenge for them falling through the cracks. That's kind of what happens. I watched an interesting show, and I don't know whether I've published a Who Am I since I did this, because it might have been a couple of days ago when I did such a wonderful thing and I was talking about stuff and I actually had paused it, so I almost did it again. But the show I watched was called The Antisocial Network, and it was really interesting to see the energies of chaos at work in that, and the people that are doing the movie, and you know, you're talking to them and they're admitting, you know, this burn it to the ground kind of energy that they were feeling. It's a history of the organization Anonymous, where that came from, and then what it evolved into, and what the state of it on the ground right now is. There's all kinds of weird-ass conspiracy theories going on out there that were born of that are absolute nonsense, absolute baloney. But you can trace their the thought forms out in we have Congress people who are QAnon people elected to Congress now. But you know what? I think that that's correct, because we've got QAnon people out there in the body politic. And somehow, you know, regular people churn into our legislature, and it is a slice of who we are. Anyway, what are we left with? I'm 52 minutes in, and I'm not sure. I'm 53 minutes in. And I'm not sure exactly what we're doing today. The show is Who Am I? One of the reasons why I am completely free to speak in the terms that I speak in, completely without resistance. I allow all things. The world is what it is, and let's assume that I am 30 years older and I have no power whatsoever to change anything around me. Well, except for, you know, the people that administer my hospital needs or whatever. I'm talking very minimally, but I'm looking at the world. So the position is, I don't have any power to physically change any conditions I'm looking at. I'm just looking at the world. Am I at peace about it, or am I all gobbed up about that? Am I okay with the way the world is? You know, I would like to think that I am okay with the way the world is. That does not mean that I can't see 20,000 places where it could be better, 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 better. Because I can see so many places where it could and will be better. So being satisfied with where we are and eager for the days to come, being grateful for the position and the knowledge and the blessings that you've got, and in absolute acceptance and allowance do you see the world around you, and now how do you want to move personally, to make things better? Because honestly, even though I say that I am absolutely satisfied and I am in a positive place, I'll tell you, there are conditions in this world that I want to see changed. I don't want to see us burning fossil fuel anymore. It's the whole meaning of the concept of carbon footprint is caused by us burning fossil fuel, and they've got us all so snowed. They've got us all so in momentum down a particular path. There are not people out there who are railing against nobody's even questioning. Regular people do not question. Now, there might be some people in some sectors who are questioning the way our energy use, of course, and the ecologists are questioning it, and, sometimes you think that humanity's questioning it, but they really aren't. Everybody's just accepting it. They're accepting that we have to burn fossil fuel until finally they figure out clean fusion. And then they'll pipe clean fusion power through all of the grid and into the houses with the plugs into the lamps, into the plugs into the walls, and like we've been doing it for the last 100 years. That's what everybody thinks, but they're wrong. That's not what's going to happen, and it should have already changed. It needs to change yesterday, but I guess it can change tomorrow or today. What am I talking about? Plugging our society into source energy? Yes, that's the big kahuna. It's not clean fusion, because the problem with that still is the amount of energy that is lost so if you're producing energy in a power plant and then through transfer stations and the kinds of electrical infrastructure on the grid that brings it eventually down to a power pole or a underground, or however you've got it piping it into the electrical system of your house. The energy loss is like 60%. There's a huge amount of energy that's lost. And then you still have the big problem that we have, which is centralized power. Centralized power, centralized energy. And not only that didn't actually fix the problem. Because even if you have 100% clean, free, well, it's not going to be free, clean, centrally produced, clean fusion, that didn't actually solve the problem that billions of people on the planet have. Because there's still going to be billions of people who don't have access to any power. The ones living on the edges of the desert, they don't have electrical power, and they have to cut down what little vegetation is in their world in order to cook their food. So that problem didn't get solved with that one, so that can't be the source energy solution, because ask and it is given. There's an answer to this problem. The answer is plug it into source energy. It's all around. It's everywhere. And theoretically, if you believe it, in the movie The Lost Century and How to Reclaim It, they talk about a man who invented a device. And they talked about it as being, it's a solid state device, and it could be in every home. Whether it's a little solid state device that you plug in your stuff into the frequency of this device that's plugged into source, or whether there's a little device that plugs every device into source in the device. I don't know. That technology's lost. Our government snatched it away and squirreled it away somewhere. We do have a Black Ops arm of our own government. It does exist. It's the shadow of our collective selves, in the same way that each individual has a shadow self. It's the self that drives the negative. It's the negative self is who it is. And we have that in our collective self too. And I believe that that aspect of us collectively already understands gravity control and already understand source energy. They're the ones who've stolen all of the it's interesting. I want to push back, and yet maybe it isn't such a bad thing. Because what really has to happen is we need to know who we are in order to be trusted with the kind of energy that is really capable of being at our fingertips. And if we would up-level in our psyches just a little bit, in our consciousness, in our behavior, in our recognition of who we are unto each other. We are each other's unknown selves made visible to one another, because there's only one of us here. And she is mankind. I like that one, because it says both she and man in the same expression, and so it covers both genders. She is mankind. Anyway, so what do I want to do about any of this? Well, know thyself. Understand that when you're feeling negative emotion, don't drive your car. And the car that I mean is, of course, your HBV, your human vehicle, your human being vehicle, that consists of the two selves. Now, I haven't done any changing of the slides. I actually did two changes. I did between two autumn scenes. Did I do two autumn scenes? Or just one? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Why do I think we can get out of this problem that we've got? Well, there's a number of reasons why I think so. Big, good reasons. I believe that we are beneficently being organized by a centralized and almighty force that surrounds us all, that we may or may not be at some level some kind of aware of. Some people call this God. It is love and loving connection, but what it really is spin. It's coherent spin. There's two kinds of spin. There's coherent spin and chaotic spin. And one is caused by the coherent spin is an energy organization coming from love and wholeness and alignment. And the other spin, is a chaotic one. It's a Loki energy. It's a It's a Shiva energy kind of a thing. It's a demonic energy. It's a negative. It's a spin of chaos and disorder. And what it does is it plows through zones and destroys them. It is the destroyer of worlds, is this chaotic energy. Now, within the human being, what that is when you act on your negative self instead of your positive self, the way I see it is you've gotten yourself turned bass-ackwards to your own equipment. You think you're looking forwards in your negativity, but you're really now facing backwards. And if you attempt to move from this position, you start moving in the opposite direction of where you really want to go, and at the same time you create a kind of shadow self. A kind of shadow energy is born into the world as you act in physicality from this negative position. It's very, very banal. Very banal. And what the answer is to know yourself. To know that you are actually the Planck field. You are the formless, not the form. You are the formless, and as the formless, you are creating the form. And the form is always in constant flux and flow because it has to be, because that's one of the rules of the universe. Everything changes except for the laws. There's nothing you can do to change that. That's the fifth law of the universe. The first law is, see, what is the first law? You exist. There's nothing you can do to change that. Non-existence, by definition, does not exist. You exist. You can't change that. You will be a mind's eye front row seat to the parade of existence for all of eternity. And what you do with that is completely up to you. It's based on what your desires are, what the reality around you is, and what you're focusing on. You are a continuum of information and flow and intention and desire. You are the formless, giving rise to the form. So what are the laws of the universe? Let's see, there's 5 of them. 5 laws of the universe from Bashar. And then there's 5 steps to creation, but it's actually 3. 4 is getting good at step 3, and 5 is back in step 1 without being mad about it, because you understand how the system works, and you understand that you are made to fall into negative emotion. But you are also made to not like it. You're not supposed to like it. You're supposed to recognize, oh, I've gone off. I'm not in resonance with my higher self, with my true self. And so that tells me something. It means, I got a hit of something in my conditions that I don't like, and that caused the negative emotion to begin with. That's fair. Nothing wrong with that. I haven't acted on it yet. I've just felt that feeling. Okay, got it. Don't like that. But now, if you want to go back into the world of action, link back up with your source self and find some way to act in a positive way to affect this negative thing that has created this hit inside of you that tells you there's a condition out there in the field that you do not prefer. That's okay. But you cannot positively affect that condition that you had a negative emotion about, that tells you that there's a condition out there that you don't like. You cannot affect it in a positive way from a negative position. So how do you heal the world from a place of being aware that the world is sick? You can't. So, turns out that the good news is you don't need to heal the world. There's nothing wrong with the world. The world functions absolutely correctly. What do you need to do? You need to understand yourself, because maybe you're not operating your equipment correctly. Maybe you've gotten yourself all in a position of fear and anger and revenge and jealousy or whatever as you observe the outside conditions around you, and you're trying to fix some condition from that emotional point of view. You can't do it. You can't get there from there. You're trying to get to a positive place from a negative position, and you can't do that. You will only get to a negative place from a negative position. That's the way the energies work. So, what am I doing here in my little show? Because I maintain that there are things in the world that I don't prefer, and I want to see them change. And I want to help us get to a place where we understand who we are so that we can make these changes and live in a better world. We need to find our sustainability. We need to dismantle the criminal justice system or morph it considerably. However, we don't need to smash it and condemn it. Ooh, this is a bad thing we've been doing all these years. No. The criminal justice system is a mixed bag. Like everything. Everything is a mixed bag. You can't really judge it. You just need to see how who we are is playing out in the midst of all these things. I'll tell you what's happening. Since we are so incredibly fixated on bringing everybody to justice, if they commit any infraction, and then there's a paper trail behind that infraction, as they move through the courts, and the stories are told, and then the judgments are passed, and then the sentences happen, and all that stuff. There's all this paper trail and storytelling, and the court themselves as an instrument of getting to the bottom of what actually happened out there, in the case of that murder or that crime or that whatever. And so what's happening is the details, the specific details of every story, of every misalignment everywhere, which is what you could think of as a crime, is like a place where somebody went against the social order for whatever reason, the social belief of who we are, and then ran afoul of the law, and then the law gets involved, and then there's this incredible storytelling and getting to the truth exercise, and it's just breathtaking. The reason that we do things is not always the reason that we think we do things. The result of what we end up with that helps us understand ourselves might be why we're doing everything we're doing. We may think that we're baptized, the reason that we are furiously chasing down our genealogy and finding the story of every human being that we can find and tracing all the families back. We may be doing it for our own religious purposes because we believe that we have to be baptized for them, or their souls aren't going to make it to heaven, or we're going to be locked in different kingdoms. I'll be over here and my family will be over there, and so we have to get baptized for the dead so that they can come to heaven and be in the celestial kingdom with us, or whatever story that we tell. But what we end up with on the ground is why we did it. And what amazing thing did that religion create, this breathtaking genealogical database to be used for all of humanity for so many wonderful reasons. Everything from Alex Haley, doing his Roots miniseries, and more people watched that than... That was the beginning of... We're telling our story. The whole exercise of humanity right now is an exercise in us figuring out who the F we are. Who am I? How do we be on this planet? How do we be peaceful? How do we co-function, co-create, cooperate, coexist with 8, 9, 10 billion other people on this planet. Well, how we do it peacefully and joyfully and creatively and sustainably is that we need to know who we are. We need to think about who we are. We need to figure out who we are. And so to that end, I do this show. I realize I am an hour and 15 minutes in. I have up to another 30 minutes if I want to use it. Maybe I'll start at the beginning, and we're going to talk about what is the human design, and where did we get this human design? Well, I think that we were genetically modified. I think somehow aliens came to this planet. This particular genetic modification would have occurred approximately 200,000 years ago. Now, there may have been plenty of other extraterrestrial visitations at other times, much more recent than that. I have no idea, but I eagerly look forward to the entire family of man and the National Academy of Sciences and all of our people being sent in every which direction to ferret out all kinds of truth that mainstream science has not been willing to address. They do not acknowledge in the natural history museums extraterrestrials yet. They don't do that yet. But I believe at some point they're going to have to. And there's a lot of museums all over the country and a lot of school children who have done those field trips to those. They're going to have to be re-educated. This would have happened some 200,000 years ago. And what this is this. This is... Is that where I want to start? I usually start with this because this shows you what the neocortex, what part it plays in the human mind system. It's the overview mind. And 76%, or in other words, 3/4 of the volume, it would be a much, 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 much thinner layer, much less plump volume of brain matter. Without this genetic modification, 76% of the volume of that neocortex comes from human chromosome number 2. Now, this slide right here that I captured from a Greg Braden seminar that I purchased and got all the slides too, for my own. You can see his little face in the upper right hand corner. This is his slide. He inspired me to go to Google PNAS. What is that? Actually I Googled Postnatal Acid Psi USA. You see that right there? Right in the white line at the top. That's the Proceedings of the National. I did not know that NADL is the contraction for national. This is the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. PNAS.org is where you'll find this, where geneticists some 33 years ago published this article. And they analyze human chromosome number 2, and after doing the sequencing on both sides with telomeres in the middle, which telomeres do not belong in the middle, but there's some little bit of telomere material in the very center of this chromosome. And you analyze the sequences above the telomere and below the telomere, mark, and what they conclude is this. We conclude that is the relic of an ancient telomere to telomere fusion and marks the point at which two ancestral ape chromosomes fused to give rise to human chromosome number 2. Now you notice these geneticists do not say at the point at which these two ancestral ape chromosomes were genetically intentionally fused together in a laboratory. They don't say anything like that. They just say that they fused. They don't say how they got fused. You know, maybe some ape got struck by lightning, you know, and somehow his DNA just changed. And then he was a really, really super sexually active. And so he, you know, I don't know. I doubt if it's any of those things. I think we were genetically modified. It would explain a lot. It would also strengthen the idea of UFOs are being hidden from us now, largely because to openly examine them would be to openly invite conversations about, look at the way they're moving. Let's deconstruct that, because human beings are very clever. Right now, the mainstream paradigm has us convinced that, first of all, over unity devices are not possible, and that source energy itself is stochastic and random, and you don't have to pay any attention to it because it all cancels out to the random function. That randomly infinite energy being everywhere means nothing because it's everywhere and it just all cancels out. You know, nothing to see here, folks. Wrong. We can plug our civilization into the source of all things. Where else would you plug it into? Well, right now we've got it plugged into fossil fuels. And the reason that we do is because there is a surprisingly small club of people, ultimately, who are, I wanted to say in control. But in a way, they're in control of it like you're in control of a runaway freight train, in a way. Or, you know, that wolf that you've got by the ears. You know, you're in control of it. Are you really? But there's a relatively small group of people who is controlling, who they get the benefit of the wildly huge, the economic activity coming from fossil fuels. There's a relatively small group of people, 400 families, something like that worldwide. It's really quite small. They've got us convinced that that's the only way. And they keep making sure that the people who are elected to Congress and the Senate and all of the government agencies and whatever, that it all keeps supporting the momentum of the infrastructure that we've got going. The one that was begun about a century ago. Actually, a little bit earlier than that. John D. Rockefeller had a great deal to do with it. He had a great deal to do with a surprising amount of the infrastructure that we deal with today was born through him in an off spirit. And this meets, I'm going to make an attempt at this. Back in the 80s, I was a bit of an activist, although my activism really involved mostly just me thinking about these things. Me going through a state, different transitions in my mind, as I picked up this cause and then that cause and then some other cause, as I went through my activist period. And my causes were, vivisection was a big one. Vivisection, industrial waste dumping was another big one. Cults and cult leaders, things like the Jim Jones phenomenon, and also authoritarians like, which I saw, like Idi Amin, who we lived in Kenya for 2 years while Idi Amin was in power next door. And so in later years, I read about what was going on next door, and I felt the cold fingers of how close that horror was to where we were living. Anyway, I was interested in that. I was outraged at the way that our country was moving to industrial farming. That was the time of Live Aid and Farm Aid and that kind of stuff, where we were trying to raise large amounts of money to fix these big problems. The thing is it's not the money that's going to fix it. It's going to be a new set of consciousness that's going to fix all of these things. But a new energy source is also going to fix all of these things. But we have to have the consciousness to go with it, because otherwise we're setting everybody, go forth off on your own with literally unlimited clean, free energy. What are you going to do with that? Are you going to be who you really are and dance in the bigger field? Or are you going to build your own little Waco and arm to the frickin' teeth because your motivation is fear and anger? And then are you going to set up that kind of a situation where you're pretty much asking for the gunfight? It's going to be interesting. When we open up this whole new can of worms, when we fix our old problems with all this new energy, it's going to open up a whole new can of worms. There's going to be all kinds of new things to worry about that we've never worried about before. We need to conquer gravity. Our vehicles need to come up off the surface of the planet, but you can imagine already what's going to happen when that happens. People are going to be flying around all over the place, all over your property. Where's the privacy there? Honestly, none of that is going to matter when we understand who we are, that we are one being. We are one morphogenetic field onto this planet. Humanity is. And then the biofield, you could consider that another morphogenetic field that we are all part of. We are all one thing. We're part of this big allness, the almighty holographic thing that we all have in common. So I have So how do I see this world that we have in common? Because there is a commonness about it, and yet none of us are living in the same universe. But all of our separate universes exist in the greater universe that we all share. And it's all holographic, so I've got all the information, and you've got all the information, and we've got this big universe in common. However, I'm seeing it and feeling it and acting upon it from this position on the grid, picking up my source impulses from this position on the grid, and you are doing the same thing from your position on the grid. So you've got a slightly different set of information than I do, even though we both have the whole set. Do you see how this works? And you know what's going to save us ultimately is diversity. Diversity, diversity, diversity. We couldn't have even dreamed of how the diversity of media and the diversity of attention and the diversity of entertainment, how that could have exploded from where it was when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I remember when we finally got color television. We got a color television, I don't know, maybe around 1968. I don't remember the exact moment of getting it, but I do remember that we had a black and white TV when I was younger. And then at some point, and as a matter of fact, all the shows being broadcast prior to 1965 were broadcast across black and white television. They didn't even get color television until 1965, when a bunch of shows started turning color. Not all of them did. There were shows that started in the early 1960s, and you can see where they shifted. Andy Griffith Show is one. He was black and white until 1965. And through the it's either after 1965 or it was whatever season. I think it's the 1966 season that starts broadcasting in color, and then they go all the way to 1968, maybe. It doesn't matter. What I'm saying is, actually, hold on just a second. I got to find what I was saying, because I was saying something big and broad and important about the changing of the world. When you look at television, now I can really see it because I lived through all of that. So when I go back and watch the old shows, I'm remembering what human beings collectively, generally agreed on, what we thought at the time. You know, watch the old, I like to watch sitcoms, and so I am a specialist in watching the old sitcoms. There's a few dramas that I like. I like Columbo, and Matlock is later, but I don't know. You can see reflected in the old television the viewpoints, the single fabric of society, the consensus views. And there was only one place where this was coming out. There was 3 networks, and then you'd have a local PBS channel, and then usually there was I don't know when this started. There was a local UHF channel also, maybe a couple of those, and that's all there was. There wasn't anything else. And the news was the news was the news was the news. And we all kind of had an agreement about what we thought was true, about what we thought was real, about who we thought we were. But you know what? It was way, way, way too constricted. And it wasn't even that many years ago. And now, oh my God, the landscape is breathtaking in its diversity. You know, people used to be all concerned about who owned the radio station. Well, who the hell cares who owns the radio station? Because that isn't really the way most people listen to things anymore. So who cares? Who cares about regular TV either? Because from millennials on down, they can't afford the cable. And so they're picking up their streaming platforms and over Wi-Fi and stuff in different ways. Way different than we ever did. We are different. We as human beings are different than we used to be. And we're living in a really interesting time right now too, because living on the planet right now I should figure out exactly how many generations there really are living on, and it all depends on how you're dividing them up. But let's see, you got the greatest generation, that would be the generation of my parents, and there's a few of those left. My father is alive still, and he's 98 years old. So, so there's the greatest generation, and then there's their children's generation is the boomers, and that's my generation. And then the generation after that would be Gen X, and then there's millennials, and then there's, is it Z? And I don't know what all the younger generations are, but it's like every 10 years we give birth to a whole nother group of young people who has a completely different outlook on the world. So it used to be back in the olden days, you didn't have that much different outlook than your grandparents. You still had a general consensus about the way you do business, about, you know, the rules of the playing field. You usually agreed about God and religion with what your grandfathers and their generation. You often had the same economic ideas. You may have even followed in the family footsteps of, you know, whatever the family business was. You knew your grandfather was a blacksmith and your father was a blacksmith and now you're a blacksmith. Well, we don't have stuff like that anymore, because I'm telling you, from when I was a kid to when these kids are kids now, the world is a different place. It's a freaking different place. However, my generation has an awareness of where we came from in some ways more clear than the younger generation. And it's not just... we have to have some sort of connection to who we are, to a culture, to a recognition of who we are. Because if you take human beings out of that and then raise them just however you want to, in whatever, you can raise them in the Hitler Youth, you know, and they can grow up to be little monsters if they have no connection to the past and the greater self and the whole picture. You know, if you're just raised in the... Anyway. So what's my point? What's my point? What's the actionable... What's the actionable stuff here? Well, let's go back to the 5 rules of the 5 laws of what are they the laws of? The universe? The first one is you exist. There's nothing you can do to change that. The second one is everything is here and now. There's nothing you can do to change that. There actually isn't a past. But a past was a now at some moment, but there's only now. There's only now. And that past that was, you don't have to worry about going back to wherever it was, because the information of it is with us here and now. That's why your inner being never has to go back in the past, because all the information of the past is with your inner being here and now. It's bringing everything forward with it. How does it do that? Well, Nassim talks about a space memory network. Other people, other traditions have talked about a thing they call the Akashic Record. Now, I think that these two, the space memory network and the Akashic Record, I think there's a relationship there. I think there's a similarity. I think there's a commonness of theme there. What the space memory network is that everything that happens as it happens leaves a print on the fabric of space-time in the exact location that it happened when it happened. Now, I'm not saying that, so when you, like, our planet is spinning at a very high rate of spin. And it is also spinning around a sun. And that sun and its whole field, that whole part of the galaxy is spinning around the black hole at the center of our galaxy. So where it happened is not where it is right now, because we just flew past that. as our Earth is flying past the area in space-time and things are happening, the things that are happening are being recorded on that place in space-time where we were as we flew past. Do you understand? It's written forever. It's like the hard drive of the universe, and there it is forevermore. And all things being all matrixed and connected to itself, when you remember something, you are actually your physical transmitter receiver equipment. When you remember something, your mind is touching that part of the matrix where the memory exists in the space-time network of memory. You are touching that place in space when you remember something. That's where the memory is stored. It's not stored in your brain. It's stored in although, everything's holographic, so your brain has all the information too, has all the memory, and your specific brain probably has access to a shortcut network that tags you directly into the memories that are specifically relevant to you. So, you have a shortcut to the space-time memory network through your consciousness to connect to your own memories. But they're out there in the field. All of the information of everything is out there. That's how this field works, this quantum matrix of information where everything holographically is. And how does my understanding of that lead me to a better life? Well, such good questions. And I have so much to say about this. But I also realize I'm an hour and 41 minutes in. I've riffed about whatever it is I've riffed about already. I have over 130 shows that I have logged on. Now, 20 of them are not public facing, not for any reason. There's nothing secret there. I did some dogs. I did some shows that I thought were really crappy. And I didn't post them for a while. I'm like, I need to keep doing the show. I'll just not post these for a little while. And so I actually posted them to YouTube, but they're not public facing. They're unlisted. And so you can't see them. But I have, let's see, let me look at my YouTube. I have 138. So I have about 118 that are public facing. And all of them are trying to get to a description of our situation as human beings. Now, you can't just sit outside of our situation and analyze it. At some point, you have to participate. It's a participatory universe. And you have to bring it into reality somehow. You have to bring it into physical reality somehow. You have to live your life. You have to be real. And you have to choose your way. And I don't know how to tell you what to do, except for, understand the setup. And then go back to whatever it was you were doing and adjust. accordingly. You're like, oh, okay, I have all these desires, and I had all these desires, and those desires are still valid, but now I recognize, oh, the setup is a little different than I thought it was, and so how do I go about getting what I want? Well, Bashar would tell you to do things like follow your bliss, follow your excitement, follow where the energy is, where you feel yourself coming alive. Go to that spot and be there and do the impulses that are inspired to you from that highest place at any given now. That's your inner being, your higher self, trying to guide you. Abraham would tell you, don't try so hard. Allow things to unfold, because there is a natural expansion and a natural, blessed loving evolution going on, that if you would just allow it to have its way, things are getting better. They're getting better, they're becoming more, they're expanding, all of that stuff is happening. Oh, excuse me. I gotta try not to catch hiccups. Hold on 1 second. That is the point in the process where a drink of water can help keep you from getting hiccups. So before I go, I have to show my list. This is my links list, because I'm going to put this in the description of my video. This is the description of my video, which of course is, if you look at this, you see it's not at all a description of any video. It's just a list of a bunch of other videos. These are the ones that if you are a fan of my material, I would like you to check this stuff out, because it's pointing to things. The lost century and how to reclaim it. It's pointing to, oh man, I'm going to have to get back to John D. Rockefeller, because I could do a whole show about that. I could do it later today, except for today is my day that I go do things. I have appointments and I go bowling. I go interact with regular people in regular ways. But at some point I could do a show talking about what John D. Rockefeller did and how he significantly changed. He influenced the structure of the institutions that we have today. That's why he had such a big effect. He set up the way that we do everything from... So I found this out when I was studying vivisection, when I was so concerned about it and horrified about it, and recognizing how it was a spirit that is poisoning our medical field. It's poisoning our whole medical paradigm. It's very Mengele, Dr. Mengele level spirit, the vivisection industry, and yet it is at the bottom of our... It's at the root of our medical model. Our medical doctors, the way they are trained, they undergo a certain amount of medical animal testing. They operate on animals. When a drug wants to be brought to market, which John D. Rockefeller had plenty of interest in the pharmaceutical drug industry, as well as in the energy sector, Standard Oil and all that. He was also interested in the legal situation. He was instrumental in help setting up things like medical colleges and pharmaceutical laboratories, and setting up the legal parameters for not being sued if you come up with a drug that poisons people, if you did the prerequisite animal testing, however much that was. He was instrumental in setting all of that up. and he was lauded as some sort of great philanthropist, but he was setting up an empire of institutions that would then they would carry on a momentum. 100 years later, we would look around our landscape, and virtually everything around us is all of that institution with 100 years of momentum added on. And there's a spirit that is off in the middle of that. It has to do with, at some point I'm gonna go in and dissect this, because, no pun intended to the vivisection stuff, because the spirit that is off is a spirit that you can follow. You can follow it around the planet. You can spot it at the heart and the center of any place where there's a problem. Where anyone or anything is suffering, you will find an offness of spirit. And a sameness about it too. That offness comes from, I believe, a misunderstanding of who we are, and a non-recognition of who we are. Let's get through the rest of this list. Let's see. Origin of Mass, Nature of Gravity. That's the paper. That's the video that describes the paper. Then we have Quantum Revolution, Nassim's 12-part series describing the shape of the universe. How it relates to what the Founding Fathers thought. You know, everything from the Schwarzschild solution to the Einstein field equation, predicting the radius of the proton and the whatever. All of that explains how it's holographic. And anyway, then The Connected Universe, that's a movie about the same thing. That one was done in 2016, narrated by Patrick Stewart. Very good. I hope all these are still good links. I should go look. Because I had The Connected Universe for a while, and then it went away for a while. And I don't know whether all of these videos are still available. They could be people could be yanking them off the internet because they're helping you understand things that they don't want you to understand. Over Unity devices are possible. For one thing, did you know that? Do you even know what an over Unity device is? It's a device that puts out more energy than it takes to run. You say, that doesn't sound possible. That sounds like it's defying one of the laws of physics. You can't create energy out of nothing. Well, they're not creating energy out of nothing. They're doing things like, so some of those over Unity devices were doing, one of them was really cool. It was locking into the magnetic field of the planet. And then running whatever and putting out energy. But that's not creating energy out of nothing. You know? We've been led to believe that they aren't possible. Because our group self does not want jillions of individual groups going out into the field without connection to the greater group and being able to... We want the greater group to stay tagged into itself. So it senses that there'll be a danger of all kinds of culty, I'm going to say Waco level situations. Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. I did sneeze, and it was very loud. I see now I am at an hour and 53 minutes, which means I need to stop this recording very soon. Hit the shower, go make an egg sandwich for my husband and all that. Besides that, I don't want to put you through this for longer than 2 hours a day. Who am I? Who am I, and what is this divine matrix that I find myself embedded in? How does it all work? How do I work? What's the meaning of my negative self, my negative emotions? What is my emotional guidance system? What gives rise to my emotional guidance system? It's my two beings, my source self and my conventional self together are creating this. When I feel negative emotion, it means that I'm taking a different thought, a thought that does not resonate with what my inner being knows to be true about the situation. So I can either go with this false, dark, chaotic thought that does not resonate, or I can back up and line it back up with what my inner being knows to be true. Don't you want to be lined up with what your greater self knows to be true? After all, she's the one who knows what's true. She's connected to everything. Holographically is she connected to all things. You know, a month ago, I was making noises about doing a marathon show, and I think I should, because if I had 8 hours to do this, first of all, I would drive myself completely crazy, but that's neither here nor there. We could talk about divine autonomy. We could talk about all the laws of the universe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the steps of the universe, steps of creation, which I didn't say, and now I don't have that many minutes left. Step 1, you contrast. The contrast of the world, stuff that you like and stuff that you don't like. Contrast causes you to focus and be aware of what would be better. Contrast causes you to ask for more. That's step 1. Step 2, source answers you vibrationally. You have asked vibrationally, source answers vibrationally. But now you have to get into a state of allowance. You've got to allow your answer to come into being. You can't stay in a place where you keep staring at what you don't like, saying, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. At some point you've got to find that state of allowance to allow it to get better. You've got to allow. So step 1, 2, 3. Step 1, life causes you to ask. Step 2, not your job. Source answers you. Step 3, this is your only job. Your only job is to get into alignment with the answer. And then you'll get the impulses. Well, how do you do that? Just be happy. Get into a light state of being. Get into a receptive mode of ready to receive impulses from your source that will lead you to the answer of your problem. Step 4, you get really good at step 3. Step 5, you're back in step 1 and you're not mad about it. That's Abraham's step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Bashar was, let's see, did I get past everything is now? No, I don't think I did. The next one is all is one and the one are all. Or the all are one and the one is all one. It's all one thing. Then the 4th law, and it's the only actionable one. What you put out is what you get back. Because the world, the universe is a big freaking cosmic mirror. And if you want the universe to smile at you, to love you, to smile at you, the reason I say this specifically, smile at you, it's a big mirror. If you want the universe to smile back at you, you've got to smile at it. You can't force it to smile by being angry. I'm angry that you're not smiling. Would you smile? Smile. I want a loving, kind universe. Well, what you put out is what you get back. Nothing you can do to change that. And then the last law, everything changes except for the laws. There's nothing you can do to change that. I'm past an hour and 58 minutes, which means I've got to get going. I love you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here today. Tomorrow is Wednesday. I will be back and do another show tomorrow, and I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Until then, God bless. Do your best. We are all in this together. All is well. It's all going to be just fine. Our future is so amazing. I can't even wait to begin to... that's a stupid way to say that, but I can hardly wait to tell you where we're going. I'm very excited. So, until tomorrow, God bless, and wait for it. May the source be with you.